Hello, everyone. Matter of fact, I put up a chart. This is today at 6/31/16.
Oh, it's today's chart.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
we're
just
going to look at the Grand Cross?
Oh. Here's the Pluto
13, it's exact
square
still.
Uranus that everybody's been talking about.
I was tuning into an astrological online broadcast that pointed out that a very unusual thing is happening with the nodes of the moon, and that is that they're staying in 27 degrees of Libra for, I think it was 25 days in one single degree. The nodes do go, they usually move retrograde, but they do go direct for periods of time, and apparently this is one of those transitions when they seem to be standing, I mean, my information may be wrong, but I think I was listening to an informed astrologer talk about it last night.
So that is, all the nodes are is where the orbit of the moon cuts. It's where the orbit of the moon cuts the celestial equator.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, we were having an interesting conversation about the moon's nodes.
And it goes back and forth.
It does.
Yeah,
It goes
goes back
direct,
and
then
forth.
retrograde.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you were saying that
It's in 1 degree for 25 days. Very
Oh,
unusual
okay.
phenomenon.
When does it go stationary for 25 days? And I can look it up just out of interest, because I've always assumed...
I think it's that way now, Michael.
Motion.
Beginning of April, it started out at 29 Libra, and then does it move back to 27 and stay there?
And then on the 20th, it went to 28 degrees of Libra, and it's still at 28 degrees of Libra.
Okay, so that would be the 28th degree. So as of just the 20th, it started its standstill during 27 all the way until May 26th.
and it's staying in
For
relatively
a
the
very
same
long
position
time.
for a long time.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. Throughout this tension-fraught grand square time, the nodes are giving us this potential to, with high perspective, rise above the fray and keep, a higher power contact point of view.
We're actually talking about the grand square in the sky. I put up a chart of the current moment, and
So
Right.
Mars just crossed
so
the
Mars
equator.
is opposition Uranus and square. So it's Mars, Uranus, Jupiter, Pluto, grand square. It's been going on for some time, but it'd be interesting to know how long.
Well,
because
the Uranus-Pluto thing, this
been-
is the
it's
fifth
been going
of
on and
7
on. Oh yeah, right.
exact
Yeah.
squares. And they complete in March of next year.
2015.
So
Right.
that's, a 3.5 year 7 square process.
And we are seeing a lot of revolution.
We are seeing a lot of
Just look at
revolution.
what's going on. Like Putin is a Libra.
Oh,
And he
okay.
just had a lunar eclipse in Libra.
In Libra.
And it actually fell pretty close to almost right on top of him.
The mundane astrology, you have to stay on top of things. You've got to log events and keep track of when stuff starts, and it's a lot of fun. It'd be a lot of fun to do that. I use Solar Fire to put together a synastry chart for Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. Now I did these with Solar Fire, which makes it really hard to read. The one on the left is Angelina on the inside and Brad Pitt on the outside. So anybody want to interpret that? Or do you do...
Well, the first thing I look at are the sun signs, and they're not within orb, but they're opposites, and that opposite attract.
And their Venuses are opposites.
Okay,
The
well,
Venuses are opposite, yeah.
anything else?
Jupiter-Moon conjunction,
Jupiter.
which is very philosophical
Mhm.
and even religious, spiritual.
So Angelina, oh, I see, yeah, Angelina's got the Jupiter-Moon conjunction all by herself, and then add Brad's Jupiter to that,
Jupiter, yeah.
with her Mars.
So,
Yeah.
so, of course, now, so that's interesting. I wonder, she, obviously, she's got 3 planets there in the 11th house, so, I mean, in the 9th house, so that's a big deal for her. And of course, she's all over the world because she's the UN representative to all the people out there who oppressed people, I guess. I don't remember
about
what her
Jupiter, she's truly a philanthropist. And Moon, the common people.
It looks like she has a lot of planets in air and fire, and he has a lot of planets in earth. So that's,
Yeah.
something, I don't know what to make of that, but you said to kind of keep an eye on that.
Right.
And,
That's a good point, Glenda. And
Well, he can bring her down to earth, kind of, because he can kind of stabilize her.
And all that 6th house energy that he has in her 6th house.
Yeah.
Would you read that as him being of service to her? I don't mean that in a weird way.
No.
I think absolutely so. He
And Saturn in her 7th house is, she has always talked about him being a great father. And she admires that about him.
well, it looks like she's looking for a strong Capricornian, with the 7th house, Capricorn on the cusp, and he definitely must be that must be one of his strongest signs with all those planets there. So that would be an attraction there. And then his Saturn falls in her 7th house, so that could be some kind of responsibility there for him.
Right.
Her ascendant is at 28 Cancer, which is really the critical degree of Cancer that last decade, and then her moon is in Aries in the 9th house. So, and it's conjuncting Jupiter, like you said, that I'm just wondering, and then his Jupiter is like within 1 degree of her Mars in her 9th house, so.
right.
He would be very, he could be very beneficial, or, somehow, somehow very understanding of all her travels and all of her philosophical ideas, and supporting that Mars also.
Right. But what you pointed out, Glenda, earlier about all his Capricorn planets. Now, granted, he's got, if you look at just the sun, moon, and ascendant, you can see that those are pretty harmonious. I didn't look at their dominant planets, but certainly all of his Capricorn and her Gemini, that sun, moon, Mercury, Gemini, and then she's got a bunch of Aries. That must be their tough spot, right?
say more.
Yeah, that could
Well,
be.
because he's
Could
very
be
practical,
solid
down to
sun.
earth guy,
But he
I'd say.
does have
But
a
he's
sad
sad,
sun.
he's got a sad sun, that's right.
And it's opposite
It's
her
opposite
Mercury.
it's opposite her sun, almost. Anyway, it's the opposite sign from her sun. Somebody else pointed that out earlier, so that probably works out pretty well.
The thing that strikes me is his Brad Pitt's ascendant is conjunct her Venus exactly, 28 Cancer. So that's, obviously there's a great deal of attraction there, physical attraction.
Wait, his ascendant, is it not 1154 Sag? His ascendant?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah, sorry, it's me.
Mhm.
Yeah, sorry, that's right.
But you bring up the ascendant, and there's a Neptune
Yeah,
conjunction to the ascendant.
yeah.
And that is really powerful in a relationship.
Her
Right.
Neptune conjunct his ascendant, right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
by the way, when somebody's Venus is conjunct their own ascendant, like hers is, it often makes for a roaring beauty.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna bring that up.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna ask somebody what they thought about the fact that
I
she's
think we can say that's true.
Venus in Cancer. I think you can see that in her. I mean, that's pretty amazing right there. And
But that's
he's got a
interesting,
staff.
that observation about Neptune and ascendant. I didn't realize that. That could sort of like magnify someone's ideal partner, right? Someone's romantic idealism
Oh, it create-
toward their partner.
Well, yeah, or create the needed illusion.
Uh-huh.
But,
Yeah.
could be a lot of sorrow. It could be some kind of, I don't know. Also, some idealism about some kind of sacrificing also that could be made.
Uh-huh.
Well, doesn't Neptune
Because
also,
Neptune falls in the 12th house.
Yeah.
Michelle, do you have a question?
well, doesn't Neptune also potentially have a chameleon-like quality? So that in terms of the relationship, she can be whatever he wants her to be.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, they can create that kind of sort of illusion.
Well, the interesting thing about Neptune is that in her natal chart, her sun is opposite Neptune.
Right.
Then in the synastry chart, her sun is on the descendant, his 7th house, opposite Neptune on her ascendant.
Oh,
That would just tell me that it's a powerful magnetic attraction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's the arrow
Between
down,
the two of
Paul?
them.
I have no idea. I didn't have time to get it out of the
Uh-huh.
chart. Does anybody know what that?
Yeah, I was wondering what that was.
I don't know. And I turned asteroids off, and I tried to, unclutter the chart as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So no asteroids, nodes, early parts.
Vertex?
I don't know. I'll have to
No,
go
that's
look it
not
up.
That's not what vertex would look like.
I'll have to look it up. I don't know what it is.
Anyway.
On Angelina's chart, the Neptune in the 5th, I think the Neptune can kind of create illusion and be the chameleon, and it's kind of, the 5th house, the house of the actor.
Right.
And then again,
And the lover.
Then it opposes her sun. So there's a very Neptunian kind of, to me that all kind of shows her acting ability.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then her sun falls, we already said this, where exactly comes to her, let's see, it would be his sun, her sun comes to his 7th house touch, and then it sextiles her moon, Mars, and Jupiter conjunction come to his 4th house, so it's almost like
Fifth.
she gives
Isn't that fifth?
some action,
Oh, it is
action
fourth.
to his
Yeah.
home, and that family feel, the moon coming down to his 4th house, kind of expanding that family, unconditional love, belonging in the 4th house.
That's a good observation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And with his Jupiter in the fourth, that probably lets him help out at home a lot with the adopted children and
Oh, yeah.
that whole scene.
Mm-hmm.
So where does Brad Pitt get his acting ability?
Let's see. He has,
Or does he have any acting ability? Is he just so charming that all he has to do is be himself? You know, do you know that Singapore, there was a poster of him when he was younger,
Yeah.
on a motorcycle or next to a motorcycle. It was some advertising thing. And of course, he's so cute.
Yeah.
Singapore, did I tell you this already? Yeah. Singapore outlawed posters of him because they
Distracted the traffic?
were afraid that it would make their children feel
Oh, yeah.
Inferior?
inferior.
Very, yeah.
How about
Go
that?
figure.
well, that's interesting. Brad's Neptune sextiles his conjunction with Mercury, the Moon, and Venus. So there's that kind of ability to mimic and kind of merge into other roles, and it conjuncts the 12th house cusp.
Well, well, his Neptune is pretty well
His
into the
Neptune-
11th house.
Yes, but it's about 4 degrees right off the cusp of the 12th,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Right?
but-
Yeah.
Correct.
Mhm. But we don't usually read things as activating the house cusp when they've left that house. We read them when they're about to enter them, right? Or when they've just entered them.
Right. Well, you know, there are different views on this.
Yeah.
Zane teaches that, you know, that once you cross that membrane,
You're into the next
you're in the
house.
next house,
Yeah.
period. There's no, there's no, you know,
Right.
on the cusp kind of a thing.
Oh.
The only place that differs is, of course, with the MC and the ascendant.
Yes.
Because, you know, in solar fire, I don't know what you have to do to more accentuate where the ascendant, you know, it kind of rotates the chart around in kind of a funny way.
Yeah.
But, you know, what we teach is that the ascendant is a significant point in the chart.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't make any difference if you're in the 12th or the 1st. If you're
On the ascendant.
if you're on the
Right.
ascendant, you're on the ascendant. And
Right.
the MC, the same thing. If you're in the 9th house and you're conjunct the MC, then it's going to impact, that's going to get broadcast to the world just like your 10th house planets do.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
So,
Well, you guys are much better seasoned than I am. I'm just now on course 2, astrological signatures, so
well, no,
Well, you're
Oh,
picking up on a lot.
I'm a little behind.
that's right. You're doing great, Holly. Don't worry about that. I mean,
Right.
that's how we
Okay.
learn. And talking is,
About his acting though, can I just
Yeah,
say?
sure.
That the fifth house cusp, there's Aries on the fifth house cusp. And the ruler of Aries, or of the fifth, is in the first. And so he's kind of can physically, you know, he physically can use his creative abilities.
okay, well,
Good point.
what do you think his dominant planet is? Let me ask you that.
Oh, that's a good guessing game. Jeez.
The sun?
No, I don't know.
Well, the sun,
What about
that,
the moon?
let's see, the sun, let's see, the sun, what kind of, does it make heavy aspects? Not really.
No,
Well,
but
but look what he's got.
No, it doesn't.
close to the midheaven, at least Pluto's got to be pretty powerful on this chart. Pluto and Uranus.
Because they're middle degrees?
Well,
Is that what
I
you're
wouldn't be
saying?
surprised if Mars was the dominant planet, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Mars.
Because look, it's in the first house, it's exact trine to Uranus. It's actually, exact trine to Echo.
And Jupiter. It's trying Jupiter
Yeah,
too.
Jupiter. That's what I was trying to say.
Oh, no, wait, it's Capricorn, so it's a square to Jupiter.
Square Jupiter,
Yeah,
right.
square to Jupiter, trine Uranus.
And conjunction those planets.
In the first house, it must be very, very powerful.
Right.
Good, Michael.
Right. And it's got it's got the
Somebody half
conjunction.
asleep, that's quite clever.
Right.
Well, and if we forgot all about astrology and just said, what do you think Brad Pitt's most dominant planet might be?
Well,
Mars
it
would
is.
probably be a good guess.
And the
Sex appeal.
answer
Yeah,
is
exactly.
the answer is Mars. That's the correct answer. And also Mars
Really? Well,
Mars
that's
is-
right.
Mars is exalted in Capricorn.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's the best sign it can be in, and it's the ruler of the fifth house. So maybe that's the answer to the
Yeah.
question.
Yay,
Where does he get
Michelle, you got it. You got that.
his acting ability? Also, I think Mars probably. I don't know. Mars would help. I would think actors have to. You
Yeah.
have to be pretty. That's a tough business.
Well, and
Well,
he's
especially
a
'cause he does
physical
very
actor.
very physical.
Right.
work.
Yeah.
He can ride, he can rope, he can,
Right.
I mean, it's visual. He's able to create a lot of the
Yeah.
visual attention on himself.
I don't know where he grew up. He was born in Shawnee, Oklahoma.
Oh,
He grew up, I know his parents lived down the street from Bryce and I, well, kind of over the hill a bit, in Springfield, Missouri.
Oh,
no
really?
kidding.
I
Okay.
think where he went to school. I think he went to school there, and I'm not sure. I know it was most of high school, but I don't know if it was early.
Missouri.
Well, Angelina's an LA girl, so
Oh.
she's.
That's where she was born or born and
She
raised?
was born. I don't know where she was
Uh-huh.
raised. She was born in Los Angeles, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's where she grew up. It'd be easy to find out. There's so much about these two on the internet that
Yeah.
Yeah,
you can find out about anything you want. Well, let's take a look at actually, this is so interesting. I mean, we could do this all day.
That's the thing about comparing charts.
Yeah.
But Brad Pitt comes from Mars and Angelina comes from
From
Venus.
Venus.
Yeah, isn't that
There you
interesting?
go.
Wow, that's a very good point, Michael.
yes.
What was Angelina's most powerful planet?
Well, she's got the sun. Actually, Venus, by Astrodine's, isn't that?
Because it's in the 12th.
Yeah, but
Weakens it a lot.
It's
Yeah.
right on the ascendant,
Yeah,
so we
so
know
that's not-
it plays a big part in her life.
And yet, mathematically, would that play a role in the Astrodine
Oh, yeah.
computation?
Right, because it's very close conjunction.
It would, even
but
though it's in
moved
the
into
12th.
a weaker house. So
Right,
it
but
doesn't
it
get
still would,
it gets that strong conjunction, but it doesn't get the benefit
of
the
being in the
angular
angular house.
Right. So her dominant planet is the sun, and then by quite a bit.
So she's got it,
It's a standout. It's got
it's
that
opposite
opposition
her
to Neptune.
It's
It's got the close sextiles to those planets in the nine,
It's trine her Pluto.
and it's trine Pluto. Right. And it's conjunction Mercury in that down arrow thing. We don't give it any credit for the
Yeah.
down arrow thing. But, yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. Well, let's take a quick.
And 11th house, can give someone that universal welfare concern, being a
Yeah.
humanitarian.
Right.
It isn't just friends. It isn't just one circle of friends. It's all humanity.
Yeah, it's groups in that sense.
It's Aquarius's natural house too. So
Yeah.
I also did the Clintons.
Oh, yeah,
Now,
I see
the Clintons, the issue here is that We've got a good chart for Bill.
Years ago, when Clinton first started running for president, the Mountain Astrologer did both of their charts. The author of that article said, I can't leave out Hillary Clinton because her chart is so powerful. I think this lady might really go places. Way back when she was unknown, or only known as Bill's wife. So Bill's on inner wheel on the right
Bill's,
and Hillary's
yeah.
inner wheel on the left.
Right. Sort of the same way we did it before.
Good.
She has Taurus ruling the seventh house cusp, so she's looking, I suppose, for a Venus-type partner, and Bill Clinton has Libra ruling the first house, and he has that stellium basically in the first house, all in Libra. Mars, Neptune, Venus, and Jupiter.
Yeah.
And the Taurus moon.
And he has the Taurus, right, Taurus moon, so she's going to feel more secure with a Venus-type partner, probably more with a Taurian than a Libran, but I don't know how that works actually, but.
Well, plus he has no water in his chart, and so she, with her Scorpio water stuff, certainly probably fills in a gap in.
And her moon in Pisces there.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, wait.
she has a lot of fire, and she has fire, and he has air, and he has a lot of fire in his chart.
Yeah.
So that's sort of complementary, but
And in her ninth house of kind of politics and belief systems,
Right.
he really brings a lot of energy to that area of her chart. She has 3 planets there, and I guess his sun comes there and kind of shines.
Yeah, he's got 4 planets in Leo. Both of them, no, he has a Jupiter, she has a Jupiter, a Sagittarian Jupiter, but otherwise all of their fire is Leo among them, both of them.
In fact, in Bill's 11th house, all that Leo, they would be good friends.
Let's hope so.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point because they've gone through a lot.
Yeah.
They've chosen
Yeah.
to
I mean,
be friends.
those two have stuck it out through thick and thin.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably the combination of, it could be, I'll suggest, 11th and the 9th. It's friendship and it's their whole philosophy
Yeah.
of what they want to do with their lives.
Yes.
A ninth house thing.
Yeah.
And
It's interesting, her Saturn is pretty conjunct his sun.
That can hold the sun person back, or at least give them stability.
Yeah, like Michelle was saying, maybe that's what he needs.
His sun may shine some light on some of her fears, illuminate or make her want to work hard and be, more successful.
Uh-huh.
Oh, her Saturn is kind of squaring his moon there in the 8th house. So I think the moon in Taurus can be so sensual. Saturn is squaring that, so he may feel some constricted emotional expression. Or if they've worked it out, she may help to kind of stabilize his emotions.
What would you look at in synastry for trust between
Yeah,
two
that's-
people?
What's the opposite of trust would be what? Suspicion or paranoia? Which planet would be kind of distrustful? Or make someone feel insecure and not able to trust?
Pluto.
Is Pluto or Saturn?
And she's got them
I don't
conjunct.
know.
Yeah, I think a little of both.
Yeah.
They both have both of those planets in Leo. Hers are more closely conjunct by a little bit than his are. It's probably been an ongoing issue in their lives.
Mhm. But I would think that if we look at the charts with Bill's in the center, his natal chart, the very thing that has been the issue for them may also be their strength. The strength of the relationship. Because we don't know her time.
Okay.
We don't know her houses.
You got to take this chart with a grain of salt, so.
Looking at Bill's inner wheel, it may be more reliable because we don't know her
Yeah.
birth time. And we do know where her planets were, so that synastry chart is pretty reliable.
Right.
It lacks an ascendant. Neither of these synastry chart marks the ascendant for the other person.
His sun in Leo kind of looking for self-esteem and shining as the actor and the lover and the creator, the
Yeah.
peacock, the lion, is quincunx her moon in Pisces, which to me can be a little bit sacrificing, rose-colored glasses. So it's almost like there's a quincunx there. It was an aspect of expansion, right?
Expansion.
Quincunx?
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Other astrologers look at it as we have to make an adjustment.
Uh-huh. It's one
Yeah.
sign from being opposite. So to me, the adjustment thing makes a lot of sense because you're not quite on a balanced teeter-totter
Right.
with an opposition,
And it
you know.
could
It's fixed fire
And
trying
it
to
certainly
communicate.
could have felt like on some level it expanded her moon in Pisces, which wants to be forgiving and compassionate and kind of let go for the family. And emotionally, she had to be really forgiving and compassionate with some of the issues.
Be very careful about putting too much weight on the inconjunct aspect.
Oh, on the moon, you're right. Yeah,
Because it travels 30, on average, 13 degrees a day.
right.
Unless you
yeah.
could be certain that that was the right time.
The moon in Pisces is a very emotional person, and it's hard to tell whether a public person is, what their emotions are, because they're probably holding them in check, but it seems like she's got a little bit of a grip.
30 degrees in 2.5 days.
Half a degree an hour.
So
Yeah,
in 16
802.
hours, it could move 8 degrees, which,
Oh, yeah.
would take it into the beginning of Aries. But anyway,
Right.
Yeah, so does she really have a Pisces moon? Well, she could have a Pisces moon.
that emotional rapport may be, something that's a strong point for them too.
Mm-hmm.
And her Jupiter and his Saturn are trying each other. So a successful career in politics
Yeah.
together.
Or real estate or whatever they put their minds to. Why do you say politics?
Because of the Jupiter and Sagittarius to have to do with politics because of the search for, morality and laws being legislated for morality and is law associated with Sag and Jupiter?
In the high court,
Yeah.
so forth.
Yeah. And I've always associated this kind of politicians and philosophers and teachers of higher education and religion. So, and then Saturn being kind of the career in that, Saturn being a kind of a career sign in that.
Uh-huh.
Capricorn, the natural ruler of the 10th house.
Well, the sun and the 10th house are often associated politics,
Yeah.
probably more than anything. And, you know, but how you achieve success, whether it's in politics or anything else, is more complicated than that. You know, you might have a powerful Jupiter that gets you a lot of cooperation from other political entities and the people, or you might be a dominant moon and just be really the popular type, or who knows?
His son would make. Apparently, he was just one of those young, ambitious, winning personality politicians. I saw, you know, American Masters on him or something, one of the PBS bios, and he was just an amazingly charismatic and successful young politician who just rocketed.
Yeah, but, and that would make sense. I mean, he's got all kinds of charisma. I mean, he's got, look at his first house.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Neptune, Venus,
As
Mars,
well as the
Saturn,
sun in the 11th.
Jupiter.
And,
He
yeah.
can promise you anything.
And he's got a mind like a steel trap.
Yeah.
Remembers all the details.
Really,
Yes.
yeah.
That moon in Taurus probably has something to do with that.
And with Uranus in the ninth, couldn't he really sell himself as a change agent?
Well, it really might make him a genius as well.
Yeah, right, exactly. But that's how he can present himself, that he had the ability to make things,
Uh-huh.
to bring about some changes.
And it's trying
And
his
it's-
Jupiter.
Yeah, and her Uranus falls also into his ninth house, so together
Right.
they could really kind of give that impression. And not just impression, they
Stellar
were
pair,
very determined to bring about change.
Yeah. Sometimes before its time. But remember the huge healthcare effort that she
Yeah.
spearheaded and everything?
Yeah.
Our next phase of discussion was going to be about vocation, business, money, that sort of thing. We're sort of following course 10-1, which is the delineating the horoscope. So in the business and vocation, avocation, finances section, you know, when you're thinking about what somebody does or what you want to do in life or what you would recommend somebody do, the first thing Zane says is, you know, you have to look at aptitudes. And aptitudes really are not only just dominant planets, but they're dominant houses. So you have to look at those. The other thing that's important is harmony in a chart. If a person's dominant interests are very discordant, sometimes it's better to go a different route and go toward the harmony. The three factors in business success, the power and harmony of your sun is important if you're going to be in business for yourself. But business in general is how well you fare at your chosen vocation. The 10th house is probably the most important thing, followed by the sun. But Jupiter and Saturn are extremely important business factors because Jupiter attracts patronage and well-being of the community or your workmates or your bosses. And Saturn is important, and Jupiter knows how to sell things. Saturn knows how to buy things. So Saturn is very good at organization, planning, getting the best deal. So they're the business planets. I think if you're in a big company, the 6th house is really important because you've got to get along with a lot of peers and and subordinates, depending upon your position. And that's a place where you can have success or trouble. The other thing that's important when you're looking at what direction a person should go in thinking about what kind of a job they want or where they want to go in life is the planets or the house, and it's sort of a combination. Sometimes it's the planet. Like if you're going to go into the confectionery business, you'd want a good Venus, right? But you might want to have, if you're going to be dealing with other people's money, you might want to have a good Jupiter and Saturn, but you'd want to look at the 8th house, of course. And if you're an attorney and you're going into the legal profession, then of course the two houses are obviously the 7th and the 9th house. The 7th is where you're going to be spending your time in court as a defense lawyer or as a prosecutor. And then you have to deal with the courts that are ruled by the 9th house. So, when it comes to making money, just in general, Zane says the 2nd house is probably the most important thing. But Jupiter and Saturn are also important because Jupiter is important in attracting the goodwill and patronage of others to give you money and to buy your stuff. And Saturn is important in being able to get the best deal and saving money. They go together. And then, of course, the 10th house and the sun and the moon are always considered. To the extent they're powerful, you have at least the ability to attract gold and silver, if not other things. And the 10th house is important, too.
Was that what you were saying was the important house if you're going into business for yourself? 10th?
The 10th is very important.
Uh-huh.
And the sun.
Yeah. Got that.
But, there are a lot of people who are successful without having, and this is not an ironclad rule, the sun. I mean, you see presidents that don't have, although they struggle. But
Obama, it's
Obama
his
is an
weakest
example
planet.
of not having a strong sun, and you can see the effect of it. But he's still a very successful person, obviously.
And he's a Leo.
Right, yeah. And his son's in a harmonious sign. But that's one of the things that people criticize him for, is that powerful sun. And he also causes him difficulties in dealing with Congress, not having that powerful sun. I wonder what LBJ had. We have to look at LBJ.
He is a Virgo.
Be interesting to look and see how powerful his planets
It would.
But in making money, I got together 3 charts here that I thought we'd just take a look at real quick for a few minutes. Okay, this is Bill Gates' chart. Okay, this is our old buddy Donald Trump's chart. There's an interesting parallel here. Of course, they both have a ton of money, right? And they both have Jupiter in the 2nd house. So let's look at Warren Buffett's chart. So we'll look at Warren Buffett's chart. Now, he doesn't have Jupiter in the 2nd. He's got $40 billion.
He's an empty 2nd house.
He's got an empty 2nd house. In fact, it's ruled by Saturn and Uranus. Right? So, it raises interesting questions to me. For example, and then you have to ask these questions, and especially if you're really trying to do any research or you're trying to, get to be better at analyzing charts. For example, does everybody who has Jupiter in the 2nd house have a lot of money? Well, the answer is no, definitely not. But they do get a lot of benefit from what they have. I think you could probably do that. And also, you have to have Jupiter in the super harmonious 2nd house to have a lot of money. Well, I don't know. If we look at Warren Buffett's chart here, and we look at his astrodynes, and we'll look at power. Well, first of all, he's got a difficult chart.
Wow.
And you can see, look at his 2nd house. Look how low astrodyne count it is.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And his dominant,
Which is
his
better.
dominant planet is Saturn. Now, how he makes money? Warren Buffett makes money by buying companies and paying not very much money for really good companies. That's how he's made all his money. That's what he's known for, that very thing. He knows how to go find a deal, and he buys a fantastic company at a very low price. And that's how he's made so much money his company is called Berkshire Hathaway. And he has made a lot of money for a lot of people doing that one thing, being really good at it.
isn't that what Mitt Romney did as
Yes.
well?
Um, well, no,
No.
Romney does a slightly different
Yeah,
thing.
he runs a company down.
Well, that's what they say, but that's probably an exaggeration. Because because what he's,
No, you're right.
I mean, his company, Bain Capital, yes, they would go invest in companies. And
That were
try and-
going under,
Well,
right? Or he'd
I don't know about
fire
that. No.
lots of people.
Well, yeah.
He'd try and make them profitable. He'd see where he could make them profitable. And sometimes that meant making
Right.
tough business decisions, okay? Now, he's been criticized a lot during the presidential campaign.
Right.
For being a corporate raider and all that kind of stuff.
But he turned the Winter Olympics around and
He-
made them work.
Yeah, he's done a lot of great things. I mean, he's a very capable guy. And he's a nice guy. He just, but,
Imagine he gets a lot of criticism though because of the Mars is very discordant in his seventh, isn't it? A lot
Are
of-
you talking Buffett now? We were on to Mitt Romney there.
Yeah.
That's okay. We were just drawing, parallels and distinctions between Buffett and Romney. So, because I've never really known how Buffett made his fortune.
yeah, that's how he made it. He buys companies and he lets them run themselves, but he makes sure they run it right. He goes in, but first
Did
of
he
all,
step on a few toes?
Well,
With the Mars
no, he-
very discordant in the seventh.
well,
And Saturn's discordant in the first, opposite
Well,
Mars.
he's known for,
Philanthropy.
well, yeah, he is now, but that's
Yeah.
not how he got started, right?
Right.
Oh, well, I noticed a couple things. The polarity of the second house there, the eighth house,
Yeah.
he has his sun and Neptune maybe being able to merge resources with others, like you were saying, taking on other companies and letting them run themselves. Maybe would that have something to do with shared resources, the eighth house? I also wondered about Venus. Does that have to do with money and security up there in the 10th house?
Probably a little bit, sure, but it mostly has to do with his reputation. I mean, everybody
Yeah.
loves Warren Buffett.
Say that because he has that harmonious Jupiter in its strongest house, the seventh, even though the house is quite discordant, he still is benefiting by using that Jupiterian energy, I suppose, and he attracts benefic partners. So like you said, everybody really likes him. That Jupiterian influence, he's really utilized that
And their
to,
sextile,
to
the
really be a
eighth house.
success with his own chart, because it's a very difficult chart.
It's a very difficult chart. If we look at harmony, yeah. Actually, his seventh is his worst house, but he's somehow he has overcome this sort of thing. But Jupiter's his best planet, but it's not
Oh,
all that
I've been
harmonious.
looking at
They had
the
them arranged
raised
by
by
power.
harmony.
Now they're by harmony. Here's the power.
Oh, I
No.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah, by power. Yeah, because it's very powerful. Definitely be able to utilize all that power if he used that Jupiter to best advantage. So it's ruled by Sagittarius. So, like you said, he would be both the Jupiter and then the Sagittarian influence would attracting benefic influences.
The moon in Sag in the 11th would bring people close to him.
Isn't air to fire a sextile?
Yeah.
A
So,
sextile.
the moon and Mercury. Yes. Yeah, that gives him
Yeah.
very good,
Libra too.
mental ability.
Yeah.
And of course, he's real
Sextile,
smart.
yeah.
And but he's got that Mercury is in that nasty T-square, very close T-square with the Mars opposition Saturn. I mean he's had to overcome whatever that Mars opposition Saturn has during his life, and his probably developed a lot of strength from overcoming whatever that is. He's learned how to get along with other people.
Don't you find that people with a lot of squares, that they have the more interesting characters? They're the character builders, aren't they? They're the ones who really have the strength of them, isn't it? Because they've had to overcome these things.
Yeah.
And I was looking at a chart recently. Ian Brady. I mean, he's a notorious, psychopath in this country, and his chart is very harmonious. And that's very interesting. He's just got one major affliction, and that is the moon opposition Pluto. But very harmonious, and it's interesting to see how somebody like this, who has got some afflictions there, it becomes quite an interesting character and strengthened by those.
Yeah. And one doesn't see it pop out right off the bat, but the 7th house Cancer planets are actually sextile the 8th house
Right. Sun and,
Virgo planets.
yeah.
That
Right, which is a great benefit to him.
because even though that 7th house disharmony gives him challenges with relating to the other, nevertheless he's got a harmonious relationship between those planets and other people's money.
Yeah. Well, Gates, pretty interesting chart, I've always thought. All the planets in the 4th house, in the 5th house, below the horizon. He's got so many planets below the horizon. And then that moon
Everything,
sticking
yeah.
up above the horizon.
Yeah, that's like the handle to the basket-shaped
Yeah,
chart,
yeah.
which really puts a lot of
People
bonus
really-
on the moon.
Yeah, people with the moon always become household names. It's like Gandhi. He was at the moon in the same place, isn't it?
Right, he's definitely a household name, that's for sure.
And he did a lot of his inventing at home,
Oh,
the fourth
yeah.
garage
Right.
type inventor, right? And he runs his business from home, doesn't he? And all his philanthropy and everything, his concerns. Supposedly his home is a real high-tech wonder. He's just created a magical phenomenon as a home, I understand.
Yeah, actually, that's an interesting point. His home is quite unusual, and it's fairly large, for a guy who's...
With all kinds of mod cons that
Yeah.
nobody else has ever thought of.
Right. Yeah.
That Uranus in the 1st house, he was not going to do things like other people did them. I mean, he was going to take a different route, kind of. He could think very much out of the box.
Uh-huh. And be a futurist and a visionary.
Yeah.
Plus he's got Neptune pretty conjunct his sun.
Yeah, so he could bring those two kinds of energies into play in whatever he did.
It strikes me that Jupiter conjunct Pluto might
Yeah.
make someone be a philanthropist
Yeah.
with their money.
Looking
Universal welfare.
Yeah. And he's been very generous.
And, taken on diseases in underprivileged parts of the world and developing nations and everything. Truly a universal welfare kind of visionary.
And the Uranus there in the first trining that really public moon up in the career, the 10th house, and Uranus and Aquarius have to do with new technology,
Right.
Yes.
new computers, and
Right.
Yes.
kind of a genius.
Yes.
Buffett and Bill Gates.
Right,
Oh,
right. Warren Buffett actually gave his fortune to Bill Gates's foundation.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine that?
Yeah.
That, talk about unselfish. $40 billion plus $40 billion from Gates makes it pretty big stash.
Was it Bill Gates who first encouraged the mega wealthy to give, a large half of their fortunes?
That's right, and Warren Buffett was part of that. Yeah, they started something where to try and I don't remember what it was, they put a little public pressure on
Yeah.
the wealthy to start being more philanthropic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ted Turner did that too, with the UN.
Yeah, Ted Turner, that's right, he sure did.
With Jupiter there in the second, like you said, conjunct Pluto, that I think Jupiter can make somebody a lot of money in the second house, but it can also show a great deal of generosity with one's money.
Yes.
Pluto as being the hierarchy of the moon and kind of having all of humanity be the family, so that's a totally new way of seeing Pluto for me.
Yeah.
There's a phoenix that rises from the ashes, and the
Uh-huh.
other variation of
Yeah,
Pluto.
yes,
Even in the classical mythology, Pluto, the ruler of the underworld, was the ruler of wealth.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the buried
Yeah.
wealth and gold.
yeah, which kind of fits with that Scorpio 8th house rulership.
Yeah.
Of shared resources. And then also where the hidden wealth, of course, and then he wore that like helmet of invisibility.
Oh.
So very hidden things.
Yeah.
And then also things that are kind of violent, like rape, falls under that because who was the one who pulled, wasn't it Hades that pulled Persephone down when she
Yes.
was taking the flowers?
Yes.
And some myths said that he raped her, and then other myths it wasn't quite so violent, but kind of, yeah.
Well, he kept her in the underworld until he agreed to let her go for half the year. Yeah, he coerced her, and Pluto rules coercion. And when Pluto was in Scorpio, that's when all the concern for child abuse and incest and everything came to the fore in our society.
Okay, well, we've reached the end of our time. Next week is probably going to be the last class. We're going to sign off here. And
Thank you, Paul.